Chapter 34. Zimmer Frame. The funeral was on Christmas Eve. Ben had never been to a funeral before. He thought it was bizarre. As the coffin lay at the front of the church, the mourners mumbled their way through unfamiliar hymns, and a vicar who'd never met Granny made a tedious speech about her. It wasn't the vicar's fault. He could have been waffling on about any old lady who just died. He went on in a dreary monotone about how she liked visiting old churches and were always kind to animals. Ben wanted to shout out. He wanted to tell everyone, his mum and dad, his uncles and aunts, everyone there, about what an incredible granny she was, how she told the most amazing stories. And most of all, he wanted to tell them about the marvellous adventure he'd shared with her, how they had nearly stolen the crown jewels and met the Queen. But no one would have believed him. He was only 11. They would assume he'd made the whole thing up. When they arrived home, most of the people who were at the church descended on the house. They drank cup after cup of tea, and ate plate after plate of sandwiches and sausage rolls. It seemed weird having the Christmas decorations up at such a sad time. At first, people chatted about Granny, but soon they were gossiping about other things. Ben sat alone on the sofa and listened to the adults talking. Granny had left him all her books, and they were now cluttering up his bedroom in great piles. He was tempted to hide away in his room with them. After a while, a kindly-looking old lady moved slowly across the room with her Zimmer frame and eased herself down next to him on the sofa. "You must be Ben. You don't remember me, do you?" said the old lady. Ben looked at her for a moment. She was right. "Last time I saw you was your first birthday," she said. "No wonder I don't remember," thought Ben. "I am Granny's cousin Edna," she said. "Me and your Granny used to play together as girls, when we were just about your age. I had a fall a few years ago, and I couldn't cope on my own, so I was put into an old folks' home. Your Granny was the only person who would come and visit." "Really? We didn't think she ever went out," said Ben. "Well, she came to see me once a month. Wasn't easy for her. She had to get 4 different buses. I was extremely grateful. She was a very special lady. She was indeed incredibly kind and thoughtful. I don't have any children or grandchildren of my own, you see, so me and your Granny would sit in the lounge of the old folks' home and play Scrabble for hours together." "Scrabble?" said Ben. "Yes. She told me how much you liked playing it too," said Edna. Ben couldn't help but smile. "Yes, I loved it," said Ben. And, to his surprise, he realized he wasn't lying. Looking back, he had loved it. Now his Granny was gone, every moment he had spent with her seemed precious, more precious even than the crown jewels. "She never stopped talking about you," said Edna. "Your dear old Granny said you were the light of her life. She said she would really look forward to you coming to stay on a Friday. It was the best part of her week." "It was the best part of my week too," said Ben. "Well, if you like Scrabble, you must pop over to the old folks' home one day for a game," said Edna. "I need a new partner, now your Granny's gone." "That would be great," said Ben. Later that evening, as his parents watched the Strictly Stars Dancing Christmas special, Ben climbed out of his bedroom window, slid down the drainpipe. Without making a sound, he took his bike out of the garage and cycled to Granny's house one last time. Snow was falling. It crunched under the wheels of his bike. Ben watched it come down, landing softly on the ground, barely paying attention to his route. He knew the journey off by heart now. He had cycled to the old lady so many times over the last few months, he knew every bump and crack in the road. He stopped his bike outside Granny's little bungalow. There was a scattering of snow on the roof. Post was piled up outside. The lights were all off, and there was a for sale sign with icicles hanging off it standing outside. Even so, Ben was half expecting to see Granny at the window, looking at him with that hopeful little smile of hers. But of course she wasn't there. She was gone forever. But she wasn't gone from his heart. Ben wiped away a tear, took a deep breath, and cycled off home. He sure had an amazing story to tell his grandchildren one day.